Good evening and welcome to the People's Business. I'm Stacey Russell. The current multi-million-dollar construction boom in Barbados has brought sharply into focus, again, the need for well-trained artisans to become the bedrock of strengthening the Barbados economy as it faces an aging workforce and a shortage of skilled workers. In her most recent cabinet shakeup in February this year, Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley, with her visionary leadership, created a fresh ministry to help tackle skills gap in the marketplace and provide solid career paths for young people, among other goals. The Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education is on the job. Tonight, we're joined by the Minister of Training and Tertiary Education, Sandra Husbands, along with Director of Tertiary Education, and he is Dr. Roderick Rudder, and Executive Director of the TVET Council Barbados, Henderson Eastmond, to discuss tertiary education, re-engaging underserved youth. We begin the discussion after this commercial break.
How much do you know about the Cropover Festival? Can you take the challenge? I'm Derry. Join me for Cropover Know It All right here on TV8.
Welcome back to the People's Business. Tonight we're discussing tertiary education. How are we going to serve those youth that are really in need of getting to the next level? And I'm going to start straight off with the Minister of the new Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education, Sandra Husbands. Tell us about this new ministry. Brand new, what is the mandate?
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here on the People's Business. The Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education really is a government's proposed structure to be able to transform the economy of Barbados, and I'll explain what I mean. The economic world is changing. Across the world, there is a major shortage in the technical and vocational training areas. And so you have, for example, close to 500,000 construction workers that are needed annually in the world, annually. And Barbados itself has a major shortage in that area. So we recognize that the technical and vocational area space is one of the places in which we can use to diversify the economy of Barbados. Hence the absolute need for tertiary education.
Now, you've mentioned construction and the shortage worldwide.
Yes.
How many are we short in Barbados?
5,000.
Okay.
And therefore there is a lot of opportunity for young people to get involved in the tech voc space. Also, the issue of the climate crisis means that we have to change everything we're doing, how we produce everything from water bottles to how we make furniture to how we do our air conditioning. So there's going to be a lot of relearning. People have to be reskilled, learn the new technologies, new ways of doing things so that we are climate smart in everything that we do. And again, this is going to call for us being able to engage in the tech voc space. And that is why it's an exciting area for Barbados to be able to position its young people to be a part of what is going to be the global smart place to work in, because that's where the new jobs are going to be coming. So this is important for us, and that was one of the reasons. The two other reasons would be that the entire population actually needs reskilling and upskilling, because you've got AI, you've got big data, you've got cybersecurity, you have a whole number of digital technologies now that must be mastered by the population in order to be able to retain their jobs. And because of the rapid pace of change, it now necessitates that any population that is going to position itself globally have to be engaged in continuous learning. That means that school does not stop at secondary, and it certainly does not stop at your first tertiary. that people are going to have to engage in continuous learning and relearning in order to remain relevant and for our economy to remain prosperous and for people to be a part of that prosperity. And those are some of the reasons why Prime Minister saw the necessity to have a ministry that would actually focus on this very urgent need of repositioning Barbados for this new era and preparing both our youth who are underserved as well as our general population with the reskilling and upskilling that they need in order to be competitive.
What are some of the strategies to achieve these goals? What are the plans?
Well, the first thing we had to do was to look at what was the nature of the problem we were facing. So, for example, what we found was that we have a number of children who take CXCs every year. And we simply did not have enough space in tertiary, whether it was at BCC, whether it was at SJPI or BVTB, to absorb them. We were actually turning away at least 2,000 young people every year from those three institutions. Now, where are they going? What are they doing? And then too many of our children were exiting secondary school with maybe no CXC, or one, or two, and those are not enough for them to build a life. And so when you do that year upon year, in 10 years, you're close to 20,000 young people, for example, that you have not served properly.
Okay.
And their earning power is going to be lower than it ought to be. What does that mean? It means that our enterprises will not have enough people with the earning power to keep them prosperous. So the entire economy now will be at risk if we don't do something to deal with our underserved youth.
What are we going to do to empower these 2,000 young people every year at least?
Yes. Well, one of the things that we want to look at would be the area of increasing access to tertiary education. That's one thing. Then there is the remedial work that needs to be done, because many of them may have come out without the necessary numeracy and literacy skills that are needed to continue their journey in learning. And then there are changes that we need to make in how we teach our children, and therefore make learning interesting, stimulating, and more suited to their needs and their tastes. And the director and Mr. Eastmond can share with you what are some of the specific things we are going to be doing differently in order to engage, re-engage our youth in continuing that journey of education.
Okay. Well, before we get into the specifics, I would like one of you to define technical and vocational education. What are we talking about?
You're talking about mostly competency-based education, where a high percentage of it is doing. It doesn't mean that you don't have to learn the theory. Some pundits argue that there shouldn't be a separation because doctors, lawyers, engineers, pilots engage in heavy hands-on before they get to the job. But that's history and traditional. So there's a type of education like that where you have to master the skills and abilities and attitudes before you get to the job. Okay? So it is heavily hands-on, but the lines are blurred as you get higher into technical education. If you're doing things like mobile apps, and then you still have to do your underlying science and mathematics, a certain level of mathematics. The two of them are a good marriage as you get higher up. From the time you reach the technician level, you have to work without supervision. Even the cosmetologist. You don't want a cosmetologist that doesn't understand the chemicals and then destroy your hair or destroy your skin. So the higher up you go in your training, you marry the science and technology and all of those things together. So I think that the separation is really artificial, because from the time you start, a carpenter must be able to measure, must be able to handle the tape. You must be able to do calculations. If you're building a roof and you're ordering the material, probably you learned about Pythagoras or Pythagoras theorem at school. That is what you have to use. You have to use your engineering skills. So even at lower levels, you still have to use mathematical skills. You must be able to write reports. Nobody's going to put you on a $2 million machine and leave you for an hour and come back and the machine not working. You got to be able to write a report and say what happened. So I think it is an artificial line, but it is training people, bringing the training close to the workplace. The ideal is to have authentic training so that when you go out, you can do a management, you could do a management degree and never manage anybody. If you're doing it in the competency-based mode, you're going to have to manage people before you finish the course. So that is the major difference between that and full-blooded academic education, where you do a lot of reading and books and what's that. And then sometimes when you come out, you have to be trained. And companies like people to come to them fully trained and can hit the ground running. So sometimes when you do an academic course, then they have to spend a year or so training you to get you up to speed. There's a cost. So that is what TVET is all about. But as I said, the demarcation is really artificial.
Thank you, Mr. Eastmond.
What we want to be able to do as a result is the competency-based learning really suits a different type of learning style. What happens, the continuous focus on academic education suits the learning style of one particular type of child. So all the other children then become failures because they can't use that style. Competency-based learning allows for all of the other learning styles, and therefore our young people will be able to be more successful using competency-based approaches. And we have been studying the various ways in which we need to change how we teach and how we test to better suit all of those learning styles.
Okay.
And we believe it will give us more success.
Dr. Rudder?
An excellent example could be, for example, the construction of a table. Now, there's a theoretical approach to the construction of a table. You can learn about the theory of woodwork and how to build a table. With technical and vocational education, especially focusing on competency-based education, the students actually construct or build a table. So they can give you the theory and also the practice of building a table. In the theoretical world, you might be able to write more about how to build a table and not ever experience the construction of a table. So therefore, in the world of technical and vocational education, we focus more on the skills, marrying the skills with the theory to ensure that young people are rounded and they also have the practical exposure to the subject matter as opposed to a highly theoretical subject. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we've started out with the focus on construction, but of course there are other areas of technical and vocational education. Tell us about some of the most popular areas of study.
Popular here in Barbados?
Yes, or at least what are most needed in Barbados. Minister has just said we need about 5,000 artisans just for the construction industry alone. What other industries do we need to serve here in Barbados?
The aim of any system, education and training system, is to serve the demands of the country. Right now, it's construction, and there's a massive expansion in tourism. I think they're building between 5 and 8 new hotels, need so many workers. So that is where we are at now. Because a demand-driven education system, when you finish your education and training, you should be able to get to a job in short order. You shouldn't have degrees and can't find work. So right now we have a supply-driven. We just educate and put them out there. And a demand-driven, you respond to what is happening in the country. And I think the shortage in tourism led to the construction gateway training initiative. And I guess we have to expand. Right now there's a rush to expand to meet the employment that will come out of these 5 to 8 hotels that will be open within the next 2 years, Minister. I think so. So those are the demands. Another demand is the economy. The economy of Barbados stands mostly on tourism. And our tourism sector operates mostly at full capacity, 6, 7 months of the year. And then there's a season where they have to send home some of the workers. No, the demands in the country are greater. Young people have more expectations. We wear nice clothes. We like to travel. We like to drive nice cars. All this is a demand on the system, and we are accustomed to a high standard of a high social net. We go to the hospital. We expect the best of care. We expect the best care at the polyclinics, etc. All that has to be paid for. But so we need to expand the economy, and therefore we are looking not only at what we do them better, but we're looking at other areas for which we can bring foreign exchange to the economy to serve the country.
Okay, well, before we go on to talk about those other areas, we're going to take a short commercial break and come right back with this discussion on tertiary education serving underserved youth.
The new season of Mr. Executive is about to begin. Follow the journey of male secondary students as they embark on a riveting journey of entrepreneurship and personal growth. This is groundbreaking reality TV, not just a competition. Tune into TV8 each Monday in June to follow the series as finalists from Ellerslie, Aline, St. Leonard's, the St. Michael's School, and Lodge compete to be named Mr. Executive. Mr. Executive, only on TV8.
Welcome back to the People's Business. Tonight we're talking tertiary education, re-engaging underserved youth. And before we went to the break, we were looking at what are particularly needed for the construction sector. About 5,000 artisans, yet there are other areas that are underserved. Dr. Henderson, Dr. Rudder, go ahead and tell us what are some of the other areas that we are focusing on in terms of training and...
Okay. Stemming from the expansion in the hotel sector would be the associated jobs that would service those hotels. So, for example, across the culinary arts, you will need to have persons trained in housekeeping and a wide range of areas that are relevant to servicing the hotels. But outside of that, maybe look at the current expansion in the digital economy. Artificial intelligence is very prominent at this point in time. Science and technology is driving a lot of what is happening as it relates to innovation. And therefore, what we're seeing is an increase in demand for training in the areas of robotics, coding, the use of digital technologies. We are also seeing an increase in demand for persons who would need to service the cybersecurity as it relates to the expansion in the digital economy, because you would appreciate that any potential for hackers to impact any kind of operation, especially large conglomerates, can create havoc within the economy in itself. And therefore, training in cybersecurity, you would realize that in recent times through the Student Revolving Loan Fund and a partnership with Protexa, we've been engaged in training persons in the area of cybersecurity. Now, that doesn't mean that persons are only offering the services here in Barbados. It allows for Barbadians who are trained in cybersecurity to be able to offer the services outside of Barbados while still remaining here. In addition to the area of technology, I think autotronics is another area. I can let Henderson speak to that. But autotronics, especially when you think about the increase in the technologies that are coming down in our motor vehicles. So, for example, the electric vehicles that are on our streets. There's a heavy demand for mechanics to be trained to be able to service the EV market. And the SJPI has been a leader in the area of training of persons to be able to service the electric vehicle sector in Barbados. And in the area of autotronics, optoelectronics, Henderson.
We've partnered with, TVET Council has partnered with one of our world skills partners, VCOM China. They take the latest machineries to electronic machines for people to compete on. And so they've donated some of those machines to us. They're on the way. I think the last time they were somewhere in the Dominican Republic. So, but they have partnered with us. They have delivered some optoelectronics training. It is the application of electronics. You see all these flashing signs you see, these new signs in Bridgetown nowadays. And when you go overseas, you see these flashing signs all over the world. That is the application of electronics. So they have trained a batch of them already. I think we've trained about 50, and about half of those have been deemed competent, but we're going to go back for the other half, and we're now moving on to in August this year, August, September, we're moving on to the intermediate training. We're going to have, when the machines come, we're going to have training. That training center is expected to be open in Global Training Center in August, which is next month. And it will not only be optoelectronics, it will be electronics and network cabling.
Hold your thought for me, please.
Good.
I believe there's a caller on the line. Caller, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Good night and welcome.
Yes, hi. Good night to you and your esteemed panel. Good night to Mr. Eastmond and the other gentleman, can't remember his name right now, and to the Honorable Minister Sandra Husbands. I have two questions for Ms. Husbands. Now, I heard her in her opening preamble speak of the need for the lacking of the they're short of 5,000. But my question to the Honorable Minister is there is a concern in the public space that there seems to be no definitive plan. So we're talking about re-engaging and transitioning from education to tertiary education. So my first question to Mrs. Husbands, is there an exact plan, right, in the workings to transition children from secondary to tertiary? If she can elaborate on that. And my second question, I would want to hear her on both of them. Now, now I hear the gentleman talking about there is a need especially in this day and age with robotics seemingly taking over, as you will see, especially largely in the States and what have you. Now the SJPP, right, is heavily based on practical and UE, some sciences, such as social sciences, heavily on practical and other projects similar to that in the tech world. So all that is well and good with wanting to transition students and get them into this robotic and technological age, which is okay. But let's be honest, there are some people get into these areas and then they still want to pay skilled workers the minimum wage. Why is that?
Okay, thank you so very much for the question. I'll start with your first question. The government's overall plan for how we're going to be dealing with our youth, you would have heard the discussions surrounding education transformation. One of the basic tenets of that program is this, that children have multiple intelligences and all of them have the capacity to build a career pathway for our children. And therefore, what we want to have, for example, we are starting with ensuring that every child can get pre-primary education. It's going to be mandatory. We're setting up the schools to be able to accommodate that, because the children who don't go to pre-primary are at a disadvantage to the other children who get it. Then we're introducing TechVoc education in primary schools. This is going to be introduced so that early o'clock a child can be tested and seen to develop the skills that they have a natural aptitude for, and then have a personal development plan that follows that child right through school to allow him to focus on the things where he can build his potential. This will allow us then to have a smoother pipeline of people coming from secondary into the tertiary space, where the tertiary space will accommodate both academic and technological and vocational education that will allow people to climb as high as they want to on that career path and earn significant sums. Now, what is important, what we've had, because of the number of people who have dropped out, the remedial path is something that we are currently working on, that we're mandated as a ministry to deal with. How are we going to re-engage the ones who did not come out with many certificates, who need to find that path and allow them to be able to climb that career ladder that will allow them to earn, to live the quality life which they want? And so part of what we are working on as a ministry team is, one, we're looking at changing the way how we assess people so that you get away from the paper exam and allow people to do more project-based assessments. We're looking at, for example, you have the at-risk youth, where the program seeks to focus on those who may not have the literacy or numeracy skills that would block them from going on to tertiary. So what will happen is that we're going to be able to offer literacy and numeracy training along with technical training so that people can re-engage on the path. Now, part of being able to help them succeed at the technological and vocational training requires that we keep improving the skills of our tutors and facilitators so that they're using the best possible techniques that help to engage the interests of our young people. We also recognize, we would have had an experience, and Dr. Rudder can speak to it, where we recognize that people no longer want to take 2 and 3 years out of their life, put their earning on hold, and go to an institution. That people now want a more modular form of learning. So I will invite Dr. Rudder to share what that would look like and what are the plans we have in place to facilitate and support that so that people can literally create their career path as they go along and learn as they go along.
Well, essentially what we are giving serious consideration to is the whole question of micro-credentials. Now, micro-credentials are focused learning experiences that allow individuals to gain specific knowledge, skills, or competencies in a particular area. One would appreciate that this would be ideal for those young persons who might have left school with limited certification and who might not have performed to their maximum or optimum potential. And unlike traditional degrees, where an individual would pursue a degree program for 3 to 4 years, what the micro-credentialing offers is a more flexible design. It allows for targeted and quicker turnaround of learning opportunities. And this can come in the form of digital badges or certificates, where individuals can pursue a 6-month course. It could be a 1-year course. It could be a 2-year course. But the whole idea is that they're shorter, and this is more appealing for our young men, because you would recognize that in all of our tertiary institutions, males are outnumbered significantly by females, and most young men prefer to enter the labor market as opposed to spend 3 or 4 years doing a degree program. So by going the route of introducing micro-credentials, they can actually pursue some form of study, which is over a short period, obtain certification and be able to build on that certification, because with micro credentials, they're usually stackable, which allows you to be able to accumulate certificates over time and lead up to maybe an associate degree or first degree. If one take, for example, the Construction Gateway or the programs which are offered by the Barbados Vocational Training Board, one would recognize that many of those courses are oversubscribed, especially those that relate to the construction sector. Many young men are gravitating towards photovoltaic installations, their refrigeration and air conditioning, auto mechanics, and also there's a great interest in the whole area of backhoe operations, operating excavators, skid steers, and so on. And all of these feed into the construction sector. But the whole point is there are short courses, and at the end of the day, young men are able to earn more by virtue of pursuing this kind of training. And the whole idea is to ensure that we are able to provide employment opportunities that offer better paying jobs for our young people. So the micro-credentialing is a very good way to go.
On that note, we're taking a short commercial break, and we're coming right back with more of The People's Business.
Two teams compete in a series of mental and physical challenges, answering trivia questions to earn time in a cage stocked with hundreds of thousands of dollars in prizes, including tech gadgets, luxury watches, jewelry, designer bags, and dream vacations.
Are you ready?
I'm ready, baby! Yes.
Let's go!
You must run into the cage and grab as much as you can, but with no clocks anywhere, be careful, because when time is up, those doors will close. And if you get locked in the cage, you leave that round with nothing. It's time to raid the cage. Get in, get out, get rich!
Welcome back to The People's Business. Tonight we're talking tertiary education, re-engaging underserved youth. We have a caller on the line. Go ahead, caller.
Good evening, moderator, and good evening, panel. I have a three-part question.
And not your television.
My three-part question is, first of all, to Mr. Eastmond. On what basis is he proposing to look at demand versus supply education? When last did Barbados engage in a manpower survey that would allow for demand as opposed to supply? My second question is to the Minister of Education, a simple one. Why are members of the SJPI not allowed Barbados scholarships? My last question to her is, if in fact she is going to introduce technical vocational education from the lower levels, why are we having this dichotomy between education and training, between technical vocational and academic, when in fact, although technical vocational is competency-based, academic is also criterion referenced, which is an element of competency. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, caller. Minister Husbands?
Great. Thank you very much. In terms of the question, he asked about whether or not we, with the technical and vocational training, why are we separating it from the academic? And it is not that we are now separating it. It was separated from before. When you have a situation where the 11 plus test children on their academic ability, and based on whether you score high on the academic, you get to go to a certain school. And if you did not score high on the academic, you were told, or you better go and pursue technical training, do something with your hands because you can't manage academics. It made that child feel like a failure. What we're doing is we are going to be marrying the Tech Voc with academic in the school. One of the reasons why we would not have been able to change the 11 plus this year was because the teachers have to be taught how to do assessments, and then we have to introduce the Tech Voc into the primary schools. So that's a change that will take place. So the Tech Voc and the academic will flow in the same space in the primary and the secondary. When you get to the secondary, if you're academic, you will go on to continue to do academic training. If you are in the Tech Voc space, you will continue on to Tech Voc training in an institution that is designed specifically for it. And this is what we are planning to do. Now, one of the things that we have done, because we recognize the shortage, we have been working with the secondary schools to make use of their labs, make use of their workshops, that we can expand the access to Tech Voc training so that we can offer that on evenings at schools, secondary schools. We can offer it on weekends. We can offer it in the vacation. And then government has, we've started working on looking at infrastructural projects that will actually expand the capacity that SJPI has, that BCC will have in terms of hospitality training, etc., nursing training as well. We're looking to open the Hope, the Agricultural Institute at Hope, which will allow us to train 300 persons in agriculture. At present, we can only do 89. And government is looking at other infrastructural projects that will allow us to expand access to the Tech Voc. So what we're actually doing is treating them together, primary, secondary, and then you can go and specialize in a specialized institution to help you reach the top of your field in whatever it is you're doing.
The caller also wanted to know, if technical and vocational training is so important, why aren't scholarships, Barbados scholarships, offered at that level?
That is an excellent question. It has been raised by the members of our team, and we have agreed that that is one of the things that will be done, that we're going to be offering scholarships in the Tech Voc space. So we're looking at doing that. We already made that determination.
And Mr. Eastmond, the caller wanted to know, when last did Barbados do a manpower survey to ascertain exactly what we need in various sectors and industries? There was
a study done by Professor Andrew Downs from the university, working with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
When was that done?
I think it was done in around 2018, 2019, and it was updated in 2022.
What was the summary? Do you recall?
We use that to identify some of the areas we're talking about, your IT areas. It identify your gaming industry, which we think are lower hanging fruits, because you can study these areas and you don't need much equipment. You need a computer, some software, and you can work for a company anywhere in the world. And that is why we have been introducing game art and animation in conjunction with Community College. We are going to look to implement game design in the next couple of months, and game programming as a start. So
another area was the area of nursing. We have a severe shortage of nurses in the region, and we've been working with the Ministry of Health. We just had a meeting. We're having a meeting with them tomorrow to look at what their additional needs are, because you recognize Barbados had to go and bring in nurses from Cuba and Ghana in order to fill the space. Now, BCC over the past 5 years have worked at improving our performance in the area of nursing. Prior to that, we were having a problem where nurses were being trained, but when they took the regional exam, they were not up to mark and did not pass regionals. And this was a major concern because if you don't pass the regional, you cannot serve.
Was that being addressed?
Oh, that was dealt with by BCC. Kudos to Anna Allen, the principal. They improved what they were teaching, the curriculum, and they raised the quality of the teaching for the student and made sure that it was aligned with the regional exam. And so what they have experienced over the past 3-4 years is that they have a higher average of persons gaining the certification at the regional level, and that the college students at BCC were performing above the average of the regional performers. And so that improvement has been a good one for us, so that they have been able to turn out quite a few nurses that we can now employ in Barbados because we're getting a better quality nurse.
Have these nurses graduates been tracked? Have they actually been subsumed into the health and wellness system of Barbados? How many of them? Can you say, do you have an idea?
On average, they would have had about 32 persons who would graduate every year who were able to make the standard of the regional certification. And our discussions tomorrow with the Ministry of Health really is to help us identify if they've been able to absorb those new nurses into their system. The BCC has also been requesting some additional tutors, specialist tutors who could teach like midwifery, who could look at specializations in oncology or whatever, because you need the tutors to be able to teach the nurses so that they can specialize as well. That way we won't have to send overseas to get specialists. So this year, the ministry is going to be supporting sponsorship of persons who want to train as tutors with UE, who will be made available to BCC, that we can ensure we can produce the number of nurses that Barbados needs.
I'm conscious that our time is getting away. I still have so many questions, and we have a caller on the line. Caller, kindly go ahead. Good night. Is our caller still there? Okay, go ahead, Dr. Rudder.
To the previous caller's question about technical and vocational education as it relates to scholarship opportunities. And I do know, if my memory serves me correctly, the Ministry of Education would have made provision for the award of scholarships in the area of technical and vocational education up to last year. And I believe that that still remains on the agenda. However, what we would have observed over the years is that our brightest students gravitate more towards the sciences, and we are trying to motivate and inspire our students to take up the opportunities in the area of technical and vocational education in terms of scholarships as well.
Okay, I want to go back to nursing. How many nurses would we have to graduate every year so that we get to a point where we don't have to import nurses from abroad?
I think that we would need to increase our nursing output to at least between 60 to 80 a year. Not only because we need them here in Barbados, they're needed in the region. And so we need to be able to make that career attractive to our young people. We need to make sure that they have, again, it's a science problem that is there that sometimes prevents some of them from really entering into nursing. This is one of the reasons why BCC has a relationship with a number of universities, as well as Henderson College, a number of universities, to teach our tutors how to teach science, the STEM subjects, the maths, and so on, so that our people are more skilled in those areas and can more easily take up careers that call for those skills.
Okay, we have another caller on the line. Caller, kindly go ahead. Good night.
Hi, good night. Good night to the panel as well. I want to share a quick comment to the panel first before I share my question. For years, I have been thinking about this and our educational system. I realized that we don't see our people as assets to the country. Most people will see themselves as individuals who just trying to earn a dollar to carry home, to do whatever they feel like doing with it. And I find that at our educational level, we don't teach our children what needs to be taught correctly to help them see themselves as assets.
Is that a fair comment?
So my thing was, if we can break down our education system into batches, like the basic levels to the intermediate to the advanced level. Why I say that is because, especially in IT, where I'm passionate about, I find that there are a lot of skills that are missing in that field. And I'm wondering if I could ask the minister, why is it that we don't have the levels, as they talk about, in our education system? Why it is that schools teach children based a whole day, structured day curriculum, and not have a broad-based curriculum across the board where we can find, well, okay, all schools are doing the same thing, and while they're doing the same thing, we see who is good at certain levels, and we push them towards these areas. And the ones who are weak, we work towards them getting at the level where it's supposed to be. Because I believe that children in this day and age should be able to learn a lot of skills that are missing. And you find that when you get to the tertiary level, they will not continue. A lot of them will not continue because they don't see themselves as being an asset, and they don't have the skills required to continue along the road. The road. That's why a lot of them will find them on the block.
Yes.
So that's what I would like to know from the minister, who can also pass it on to Minister Chad Blackman, why it is that we in Barbados have this one-track mind where one school does their curriculum one way and another school does the curriculum another way, and we still trying to educate our children based on that and evaluate them based on how the schools teaches them.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're sharing, and you have touched the heart of the problem. And this is what we were sharing initially, that when you have an 11 plus that congratulates 20% of the population, oh, you went to this, you are going to this school or that school or what have you, and the rest of you, you have failed. They carry that sense of failure with them right through their life. And then if the school does not have the best way of training that child to help that child define its potential, then it will stop school as soon as it can, because school has become an unpleasant experience. So this is why the entire process of what is going on at the Ministry of Education Transformation and at the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education is so important. By the introduction of the additional subjects in the Tech Voc that allows the children to find the area where they have potential. They then go through life with a high level of confidence, with a sense of what career they're going to pursue, have a sense of dignity about that particular career that they are going after, and therefore feel motivated to continue their journey. So this is what we are seeking to correct by the transformation that we're making in education, because each child matters. Barbados is only 269,000 people. We cannot afford to have 20,000 young people who are not certified and trained. Our economy cannot lose one single person. Each person is going to be critical to our prosperity. And this is why we are inviting the whole of our country to recognize that we have to give support, we have to give direction to our children. Parents now have to work collaboratively with the schools so that we act as partners in our children's best interest, And we have a responsibility as the persons in education to make sure that we change the process by which we teach our children to make learning engaging, make it fun, make it achievable, and give them a hope for the future. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking to change how we're assessing people, moving away from too many exams, but using other ways of assessing our children, giving them the opportunities to do things in bite sizes, allow people to be able to work and learn and put things together. All of this allows our people to re-engage education in a way that helps them to succeed and makes that journey a satisfying experience for them. That is what we live for. This is what is exciting my team in the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education, that we're going to be able to help our people across the board to be able to find that path that works for them. And we look forward to working with you.
Well, Minister Husbands, I can tell that you're quite passionate.
Very passionate.
And we're going to take a break and then come back with more of the People's Business.
How much do you know about the Crop Over Festival? Can you take the challenge? I'm Derry. Join me for Crop Over Know It All right here on TV8.
Welcome back to the People's Business. Tonight we've had a very engaging and passionate discussion about tertiary education, re-engaging underserved youth. As we close out now, Minister Husbands, I want you to talk about how these programs that have been oversubscribed, so the technical and vocational programs, you said they are oversubscribed by about 2,000 per year. How is this being addressed?
Well, earlier I would have shared that what we're doing is approaching the secondary schools who all have workshops, they have labs, they have domestic science rooms, etc. And what we're going to be doing, there are 22 schools, and what we're going to do is to use all of them that are available to us to be able to expand access to tertiary education. And this is going to help tremendously. I hope that we can reach even at least 1,000 just doing that. But the other little secret that we let you into, the secondary school, Graydon Sealy, they're going to be moving to Ursuline Convent, where Ursuline Convent was.
Yes, we are aware.
Good.
Yeah, the nation knows
So we have asked for the Graydon Sealy School, and we're going to have it renovated completely and turn that into a full TechVox space. We're excited about that because that space holds something like 891 students, and we should be able to put at least 700 or 600 students in there learning TechVox. And between Graydon Sealy, the expansions at SJPI, the expansions at BCC, and the use of the schools, we are going to be able to accommodate all of our children that want to get a TechVox education.
How soon is that repurposed Graydon Sealy likely to come on board?
Well, that will come on board. I think they're going to be able to move next year, 2026, and that's when we will get to start the renovations. So I would hope that by the latest 2027 that would be available to us. But the use of the secondary schools, Dr. Rudder has promised me we'll be able to start that in September of this year. So we should be able to accommodate more students from September.
Dr. Rudder, what collaboration is currently happening between this Ministry, Training and Tertiary Education, and the Ministry of Educational Transformation?
At this time, the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education is playing a significant role in facilitating the training of teachers. We have been partnering with the ministry as it relates to continuous professional development for many of our teachers across the system. And the Ministry of Educational Transformation has also been pursuing the transformation of the way in which we deliver instruction and engagement of our students in the classroom. Going back to one of the previous callers, the Ministry of Educational Transformation is now focusing very heavily on the use of the play-based approach and the project-based learning to ensure that we are able to engage our students meaningfully in a range of activities that will not only inspire them, but engage all of their intelligences. And we will also be looking at different ways of assessing learning to ensure that we are able to motivate these children and to be able to ensure that teachers have the requisite skills to facilitate the process. And that is one of the major areas of collaboration that we have with the Ministry of Educational Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Eastmond. Now,
all of this is technology.
okay.
And we are pushing Microsoft digital literacy for not only the schools, but for the entire Barbadian public. The TV Council has a course. It is free, costs nothing. Anybody can register and do this course. We have trained these students, a batch of students at the Arts of Smith already. We also looking at technological literacy for the instructors in the institutions and equipping them, the AI and so on, how to use AI to integrate it to deliver their lessons. We have a future skills camp that is going to be in August, July, August for the student. We have doubled it. We're going to have about 200 students in things like aerial robotics, underwater robotics, game development, the same optoelectronics and cybersecurity. And we're hoping to carry that with the pushing of the Minister 1,000 next year. Okay?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Our time has run out and there's still so much for us to explore. I believe we ought to have a part 2 very soon. Minister Husbands, the Minister of Training and Tertiary Education, Sandra Husbands, thank you so much. Director of Tertiary Education, Dr. Roderick Rudder, thank you. And Executive Director of the TVET Council, Barbados, Mr. Henderson Eastmond. Thank you so much, callers. Thank you for calling in and joining in the discussion tonight on tertiary education, re-engaging underserved youth. On behalf of our Head of News and Current Affairs, Mr. Kent Jerson, thank you. On behalf of the technical crew, thank you so much. My name is Stacey Russell, and I look forward to connecting with you for your next edition of The People's Business, Your Business.